Yo, I don't know what happened there, but nothing was working for me on X. I
Yeah,
don't know if it was just me, but sorry about that.
no sweat. It could have. I mean, and of course everybody thinks, "Is it me?" I thought, "Is it me?" But we know. Anyway, dealing with this thing, it's going to happen. So good, it happened. And the smart folks know. You just come back in. We had to start it over. So it is a new link, right? I mean, this is a different link.
Yeah, it like ended the space. I couldn't even reconnect to the space.
I got you. So good. I'm going to send. I know Chad
Sorry,
wanted a
man.
link, but I'm going to send Mike Carson another link. But we can do that. That's a matter of fact. Take our time right now. Copy this link, and if anybody can repost this for us and send your friends, but they'll find it. They know because they're like, "Damn, I want to hear what's going on." Let me. Okay. Sent that to Chad. I'll send that to Mike. But anyway, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here, you early audience. Um,
Early birds.
yeah, we do this every Thursday. It's me and Josh, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We call it the DNX Show. You can go to dnx.show to see the outline. I was telling Josh, you heard a little bit of it. I said, yeah, I didn't want to share the outline with Josh because I have so many. I was going through his post this last week. I was like, geez, I'm asking questions about that. I'm asking questions about that. I'm asking. Then I realized I got a whole show of asking questions about this post and that post, but it's all domain investing related. It's pretty awesome. I mean, Josh, like I said, so you don't know, you're the one putting together the outline of the show. I just now looking at your post. But matter of fact, one I wanted to get to, and like I said, the outline is just a guideline because when we get on here, there's always a bunch of news, and then I want to change the topics. But there was one post that maybe you'll remember, it was real recent, I think in the last day or two. But somebody said, "Yeah, I've been getting several six-figure offers on a name," and I think
Yeah.
he deleted the post with the name in it because I couldn't see that. But and you
Did he?
said, "Congratulations, if you get it several, that's a lot." What was the name?
It was xfinance.com.
Yeah, so that is a pretty good name. Let's
It's
face
a
it.
good name.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a good name. And I said to him it's a good name. I wouldn't have said like I didn't. I believe that he did probably get six-figure offer on the name at some point, or maybe multiple. But I would assume probably from the same buyer. And I would also say that if he was able to get six figures for that name, it's a good price. Yeah, it's a great name, but like you know, part of the part of the issue with domain investors is they fall in love with their domains, especially their best names, and then they end up passing on the best possible offer. And Chris Zeiker talks about this a lot, right? Like, how do you know that that's not the best offer you're going to get? And once they pass, you might not get another opportunity.
I was just posting our link. Yeah, well, I agree there too. And it's like, I know the gentleman said, "Yeah, that shows how valuable I don't know, how valuable the name is." Yeah, I got you. No, it shows that somebody was interested in it right then. It doesn't, are they interested in it next year? I like names, obviously, X in front of it. We see a lot of sales X behind it. So finance X would be good because then they even pronounce it, they can pronounce it a little different. X finance, great. I have Sportsbook X. I got a few with the X, and I can't remember now, but I mean, I like, you just you hold them. And somebody asked me, and I sold. You might have seen it. I sold a three character that I held for 20 years. Sold it for
I saw
seven
that.
thousand bucks.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
That's
And
that's a good hold right there.
yeah, and somebody asked, I didn't answer them. What made you hold it for so long? Well, like I said, there's certain domains, even if they're crappy, a four letter that, those were always registered, the three character always registered. And believe me, these aren't three letter, okay? They're not three number where you absolutely know they're worth thousands, five figures at least. Well, but even these stepchild domains, these four letter that no one, aren't CVCV and so on. Well, I always knew they're worth $10 a year to keep renewing. That's how I've always felt. And with the three character, they're pretty shabby names, but I love short keystrokes. So yeah, just hold. And To be frank, I don't know. It doesn't matter if someone's listening or not. People that don't want to talk about the sales. Listen, Afternic already paid. They already paid, and it's already transferred. So I'm sure, I could think of ways that it would hurt me by talking more about it, but I don't care. But so the point is, yeah, I had that name. I had given that name to a brokerage for 4 or 5 months, Grit, and they had it on their newsletter. Which, Josh, your fucking DNX newsletter is fucking awesome. It's just exactly what people want. I wouldn't be surprised if you already got a sell out of that one today. But before you say something about that newsletter, is so I gave this W1Z. I was letting them sell it for less than $1,000. I had like 30 or 40 of them. I said, just, if you can move any of these for less than 1,000, like 999, sell them. Now that's not my normal price, but I was trying to work with my buddies over there to say, listen, I'm not going to give you some 3 character and 4 letter and charge my normal prices. I want you to put them in your newsletter, and maybe we'll get some activity. Unfortunately, we didn't on any of the those 3 character. And then, so I had to list them. Why they list them over there at the brokerage for less than $1,000? I was like, listen, I'm still going to keep them on Afternic for 9,999. Okay, because I'm not going to take my names off Afternic. So if they sell there while they're under brokerage with you, I'll break you up. I'm going to pay you the same commission. So but anyway, so the brokerage agreement ended, and then a little more than a month later, I get a $5,000 offer on W1Z when they could have bought it for under $1,000. Well, my price was 9,888. My floor was probably 8,888 or 8. But when I got the offer, I thought, listen, I if you get them to buy this thing, I'll lower my floor to like 6,888. And the longest story short is they said, okay, we'll try something here, and they finally got him to accept 7,000. That was 2 weeks ago. Every day I check, waiting for payment, waiting for payment. I sent a message, geez, what's going on with this one? They're like, hey, we reached out to them. They're no one's speaking to us. They haven't responded. And then finally, yesterday, I guess it came through. So you never know. But I already had written that one off. Like, that's a no, that's a non-buyer now. They've come to a friggin' agreement, and they just fucking are backed away because we know that happens. But anyway, getting to that point of is this the first DNX newsletter, and tell people how to get on the end of it, of the receiving it if they don't already have it. But was this the first one? Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's the first one. Been meaning to do one for a little while, but we're just so focused on the building side of things and not so much on the marketing side of things that it hasn't been a top priority for me. But I've got, plenty of guys that I'm close with, even people that are invested in DNX that have kind of been in my ear saying, "Hey, you need to you need to start marketing a little bit more." And they're right. I could certainly be marketing more, but uh, long story short is yes, that is the first newsletter. We're gonna send one a week out, nothing more than that, and it's just gonna be in that format. Probably put 10 names that I'm hand selecting that I like, that I think are priced well, and that'll be it. That'll be it, really. Keep it simple. Um, Hopefully, nothing that people don't want to see, so that we can avoid getting getting unsubscribers and hopefully get a good open rate.
There was a few good ones in there. I like the .orgs. Anybody wants to get the newsletter, still just go to dnx.com and sign up for it. But yeah, I saw your last Sherpa.
Yeah, you just need to have an account. If you sign up for a DNX account, you'll get the newsletter. And if you do decide you don't want to see the newsletter, you can unsubscribe from the newsletter, and you'll continue to get standard DNX related notification emails or whatnot. Which we don't. If you've got a DNX account, you'll know that you never get any emails from us unless you've bought a name or not even if you've bought a name actually, unless you've made offers on a name or if you've got some sort of notification set up for one thing or another. But yeah, we don't. I don't. I try. I did the same thing with DNW. I try to avoid like emailing too much, just because I think it tires out your customer base a little bit. So there's a time and a place.
Yeah, and yeah, that was the first message I've ever received from DNX. So I think people, you're right. We're happy to get it. Then we never get anything. I thought it was a LinkedIn post or something from the notification on my iPhone because I wasn't certain. I looked at it real fast. It said DNX update or DNX newsletter. I was like, huh? We were getting ready to do the show, and I'm like, DNX, what's he saying? I know that guy. But anyway, it's simple, basically. Right, a few good names and some prices in there. Matter of fact, if you want to share some, you can. I mean, they did. You want them to go to DNX and buy it, but basically, you're just searching yourself and just finding 10 that you think are great value and putting them in the newsletter. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, basically. I mean, I've highlighted hundreds on DNX, and a lot of the ones that I highlight do end up selling. So a lot of the ones that I've highlighted in the past you won't see anymore. But um, yeah, just handpicking a few that I think are good names, priced well, and it's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, when I'm quiet, I was looking at stuff. Yeah, JND, I see 43,000. But anyway, um, 3letter.com. They're it's still, it's like those, they go in waves, the 3 letter. I see a lot in the market and not. I wanted to ask you, so I saw Sherpa and I saw Mar, saying, yeah, he had some ideas for you. I'm sure he's probably one of the ones that is an investor maybe, but I want to ask you about that. No specifics, of course, but like when somebody's setting up a company and you're like, hey, you want some capital to help you pay the engineers or do whatever building you're doing. What type
Yeah.
of deal I mean, what type of deals are they? Like what, not exacts obviously, but just what do you give a little equity? Do you try to, I mean, how would someone take on a small investor or an investor, and how much are you willing to give up of your company, or what control, if any, do you give up? What's an investor, put up? Is it just cash, or do they help market, or what do you look for in an investor, and sort of how does a deal like that work?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I build start start the company, um, and then use my own cash to kind of like build an MVP, right? In this case, it was at gtdn.com, and just prove the concept out and show that people are interested in it, and then from there, from in this particular case, I just I got numerous friends in the industry, and they were interested in what I was doing, and um, one conversation leads to another, and yeah, I mean, long story short is, you know, I end up essentially selling little pieces of equity, to raise money to pay engineers and whatnot. And obviously, when you're a startup, you don't have much revenue, but we're generating little bits here and there. Honestly, in terms of like things that we're doing right now, a lot of what we just want to do is just build a lot of value in products that people within the domain space can use, whether they be professional buyers or end users, or whatever it may be. So a lot of the focus obviously is in the market right now, but we have other tools that we're building that will be integrated into DNX. um, and yeah, monetization isn't necessarily the number one focus at the beginning. Obviously I do have that in mind, and it is important, but um, for me, the big thing is just being able to build things that I think will be useful to people in the space. Um, and then we can like piece everything else together from there.
Yeah, getting to some of your posts that you made this week about domain investing. One I want to get to quickly is not on. If anybody wants to check out our show outline, go to dnx.show and you'll see I have a lot of brief summaries, brief sentences of here's a post that Josh made. Here's some questions I have, and I'm going to touch on those. But one thing I didn't mention was ENS. So sounds like you're not much of a fan of those names. I know some people are, some people aren't. Me, I like the one. I like the setup. I like ENS. I like the naming system. Did I say it's valuable to invest in? No. It seems to me like people, got off to a great start, or I mean, like a real. There was a lot of fanfare around it when it first, started. So people are snatching up names and, like the normal single word names, and then the 3 digit and then 4 digit, and then of course that falls apart, and it's a little bit because of the high renewal, $600 on a whatever, on a three letter or three number. But I when I say I like the protocol, I like ENS. I like the setup. I don't think it's been investment worthy yet, but I'm not mad at what ENS has built by any means. And I think there's, I
No,
know
me
because I'm
neither.
using it behind the scenes on some things. But what's your thoughts on ENS, investing in those type of names? And you made some comments online like, yeah, these people are not delirious or delusional, but close. What's your thoughts?
Well, I don't think I said where to start, and I screenshotted a post that had Nasdaq.eth bought for 10 ETH, which was 25 grand, which is, pretty typical of a ENS sale, some sort of trademark. Um, you know, I think that just on that topic, I feel like the people that are invested in the ENS space are like very like what I would imagine like very early Web 2 like buyers would have been like back in the day, like before the UDRP was invented, before cyber squatting was kind of coined, like people just going out and registering trademark names and trying to essentially, I mean, it's illegal, right? Essentially, just go and capitalize on other people's trademarks and business and goodwill. And I feel like the ENS kind of like market is full of those kind of lit people, um, which makes sense, right? It's a fresh new market, and this happened in with .com when that came out, and it's not really that surprising that it's happening, and with ENS. I think that the issue is that a lot of them are not willing to listen or learn from anyone outside of that bubble because of the decentralization narrative, and the fact that um, they see things differently. I think a lot of like crypto unfortunately has some pretty bad optics in the form of wanting to go against the grain and not wanting to abide by certain rules and regulations and laws. um, and I think it's just evident when you look at Web3 domains especially. Um, so you know that's what I'm referencing there, and then the quote on this is from Exit Liquidity or whatever his name is essentially quoting a trademark ENS name that may or may not have sold. We don't really know because there's a lot of fake sales that happen, right? And in Web 2 too, there's plenty of drama around sales in our space as well. Um, but then saying go out and you should buy a 3-digit ENS, and it's like, okay, um, that's fine. I have no issue. I have no issue with that. Um, but I think there needs to be like some understanding of like what you're buying and why you're buying it. Like, are you buying it because you want to be like part of a club and because it's trendy, or is there actually some real value? Um, and I think there's a there's a lack of I think there's a lack of value in particularly in just in like Web3 domains, just in general. Uh, and doesn't mean that will always be the case, but that's just my opinion for now. And then the market players around it are maybe like investing in a lot of these names for uh, reasons that don't necessarily completely align with what my thought process would be. Does that kind of make sense?
Well, yeah, you one thing that really made sense was, yeah. So the ENS folks, and I say the ENS folks, the people investing in .eth names who are doing exactly what I didn't do it. I did probably a few names way back when we were just getting into the .com, when the internet was starting to register names. People were like, Coca-Cola, I got Coca-Cola, and you think you really got something, and the truth is, you're right. It doesn't, it's a civilly illegal. You're not going to get thrown in jail for it. Now, it depends. You could actually do some business on it and get caught for wire fraud. I mean, there could be some, criminal ways you could get in trouble for owning someone else's trademark and impersonating them. But mostly, it's just going to be some big civil problem that you're going to have, some legal problem that you're going to have, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. And it's really hard to believe that a lot of the people. So it was Nasdaq. You're right. So I saw that. So they're just silly and really stupid is the word I want to use, because they want to argue. They want to make arguments for it, and there's no arguments for it. Jennifer Lopez just got sued for, putting up a picture of herself on her own Instagram. Why? Because, yeah, it was a photographer's picture. It's not your picture. So just you're in it, but it was still this news organization, this photographer. And believe me, I know enough about that because I sell a lot of Hollywood photos. And that's why we look at, when who owns it. If the movie studio owns it, all right, I'm going to use it. If it's a photographer, you're going to run into problems, because somebody always owns, whether it's a copyright, an image, or some text, some content on a site, or when we talk about a trademark, people get them confused. Trademark is somebody's doing business that's connected to that name, connected to that mark. And yeah, so okay, so the ENS, I wanted to mention at the second half of this hour, Mike Carson said he's going to join us. He created Spaces Protocol, and Josh, we're going to talk with him about that, but we're also going to talk with him about, okay, since you out of Park.io, and you and Steve, who used to work with him there, it seemed to me like they're traveling the world. I mean, I know Mike's still working, but I just like to believe that he made so much that he's, that all he does is count money all day. And I know, he worked for it, and whatever he got, he deserves it, because now, I'm curious what he thinks about the .ai market and where that's headed. And I mean, I know probably not regretting that he, sold Park.io, but geez, I do want to ask him questions about that. And then, like I was saying, so I've spent more money investing in Handshake, and not a lot. People would say, why do you do that? It's a waste of money. Most of those Handshake names that I got were for no money. I was bidding on name, like my most expensive one was probably Todd, owning that extension. Spaces Protocol is really a competitor, I will say, to Handshake, as more than it is a competitor to, say, ENS, obviously, and even Unstoppable. Unstoppable had some news. I read that they something with .brave, and I think they're going to apply for .brave in the next round. I don't know. So much shit going on, but we'll ask Mike Carson
Yeah, I saw
about
that.
it. Yeah, what was that, Josh?
I saw that too. I think they're going to apply for .brave. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why but we'll save a lot of this Web3 bullshit until, and I love
Do you know
it.
what my immediate reaction
Yeah.
is to .brave? And you're gonna uh, know more about this than me, but because it's a domain, it almost feels like an infringement on the Brave browser. Do you not like kind of like feel that? They're so closely, because Brave is such a popular browser.
Well, they're already talking about now. I never even thought about that until you said it, because I was thinking, but they mentioned it too, that that's the reason why they would be getting .brave on behalf of, I think, Brave browser. Maybe they're working with them, but
Got
certainly
it.
certainly if anybody else is say they weren't working with uh, Brave browser, maybe they're not. But if they weren't, and they said, "Hey, because we want our names to develop or to resolve on that browser, we're going to get this." Well, then you're really causing yourself, I would say, likely problems, because now you're saying, "Here's why we're doing it. Here's our intention." Because that's the whole thing with trademarks too. It, you know, are you intend what's your intention, at least with anyway in the domain space, what's your intention when you got it? And if your
Right.
intention is already, and intention can mean targeting basically, even if it's in a you think in a good way. But yeah, so and I'm interested in how a lot of the places, how Matt over at Unstoppable is applying. I run a service with Jeff Newman, a business where, yeah, we're helping companies apply, and now we're starting to get more calls. It's heating up, let's say, and still we're way out, still a year before. But I'm interested in knowing what attorneys or what companies, or if they're doing it by themselves, how are people applying? I know Fred over at D3 is, is applying for some names too, and then they make it public, and I wonder why they make it public, and then I have some, some thoughts on why they're doing that, because my thoughts are ICANN is not going to allow these private auctions. So if you make it public in way in advance, it's not going to stop me from calling Fred and saying, "Hey, Fred, we were going to try to get dot link or whatever. That's already taken, but whatever. I can't remember which one. Dot ape. Hey, so before we get into a big battle and lose our money, one of us lose our money, on filing this application, let's come to some agreement. How much were how serious were you guys? Because we were going to spend a few million on it. Anyway, it's that whole. If anybody wants to have a consultation, let me tell you, Jeff Newman is the slickest guy with regards to the GTLD round of the last one, this one. But there's a lot of companies, big companies, Comlade, I think Mark Monitor. I mean, the big companies offer these services to their clients, and still, you're going to need legal help. You're going to need investment help. You're going to need probably raise money help. You're going to need marketing help. But um, you need to. I'm thrilled that I'm lucky to partner with Jeff Newman. We're at tldstrategies.com. Of course, we're going to promote our own shit here, but go to tldstrategies.com and just schedule a meeting. But the point is, because everybody's going to end up picking their little teams to go ahead and apply for an extension, and it's not inexpensive, and it's really, the application part is just the start, and you're going to need, like I said, legal help. And Jeff's a lawyer, and you don't want to get burnt by attorneys too. It just take all your money. And the last thing I'll say about the new next round is, it's a bitch. I mean, 227,000. That's just the application fee, and if you're not successful, you don't get anything back. Now you can always back out real fast, and they'll give you 60%, or back out real. If not so fast, it goes down to 40, then 20, and you're like, who wants to get 40,000 back and fucking tuck your tail and leave? I mean, so it's really an interesting process applying for a string, and lots of ins and outs to it. But then the business really starts up afterward, when you have to make sure now you've turned yourself into a registry. How do you comply with ICANN? And that's where I'm coming in mostly with Jeff, and then helping with the marketing of, all right, it's even like hip hop. You got to, how much money these guys, they picked that on the aftermarket, how much money they spent over the last couple of years traveling and just trying to market that thing, much more than they spent on the extension. I'm talking about Monty and his team. And you still see it. Has it turned a profit? Has it been successful? I'm guessing no. And I can flat out just ask Monty and Jeff. But you spend a lot, but there really is a lot of promise in owning an extension, because if you can get just 5,000, then 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 registrations, and even if you have a reasonably low, let's say $10 to $20 wholesale cost, it can really, add up. I mean, if you run a tight ship, it can be a profitable endeavor. I mean, and I like, that's like sitting back, and I'm lucky to be part of conversations where I'm okay, so these guys have this idea, and it's more of what's your plan later on. to market this thing, because some things are going to catch on. And Josh, that means we're going to have some potential investment opportunities. Speaking of that, sometimes these new extensions that no one's ever registered, it takes a while. It's still going to be 2 years out before these new extensions even become available. That's quick. And sometimes it's a lot longer. .free, .hot, and .spot just became available on the 19th. I've looked at several. I haven't registered any, but what do you think about those three extensions? And do you look at, when something like that becomes available, do you look for some just great domains in those extensions and invest, or you steer clear?
Um, Definitely don't like the sound of dot free. Sounds like not much money to be made. Clue is in the title on that one. Um, but out of the three, did you say dot spot? Was that one of them?
Yep.
That would probably be the one that would be most interested in. But when I say most interested, like the interest level, if it's like a score out of 100, dot spot would be like 1 out of 100, and the other two would be 0.
Yeah, I looked at right. So I immediately thought when I see these new extensions, what is gluten free? No one gives a shit. But I'm saying what is something that really is a phrase?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
something free. And free had the fat free, worry free. I mean, I
yeah.
look
Those are
through,
the only type of names that I would like, that I think have some value. And
and
it's
they
the
they
same
pretty much
same
sound the
thing with
same.
like spot, right? It's like hot spot or whatever.
Right. And then there's not hardly anything with hot at the end. Red hot, steaming hot, white hot. I mean, like weird things that just don't matter. Spot, on the other
Red
hand,
red hot would be kind of cool.
sure. Yeah. I mean, and of course, there's, I believe all of them had the lowest registration price, I believe, was $21, $22. I was looking at Dynadot, but that's only if you get a crappy one. I will say, and I gave it out, no one registered it, but meeting.spot is available. That was $110, and the meeting.spot. And the reason I bring those up is the meeting.spot is developed out in the .com, and it's only $21 to register, and it does make a lot of sense with regards to Zooms and Teams and all that. So people love meeting spots, and but meeting.spot, just the two word. Well, meetingspot.com is of course parked. It's got a domainer owns it. That's why to get to that other topic of the week was uh, everybody's talking about domain investors. There was that article from this Digital Citizens Alliance saying, that's exactly. There's so many great names. They're just parked. They stand in the way of companies being able to use them, which really stands in the way of the, companies, the internet growing, because it's just like back in way in the old days when Fred at D3 started his company Oversee, was even before that. Remember, I don't know, you're too young, but we used to go back on the internet and like you put in a domain name and then it just doesn't go anywhere. It didn't even go to a parked page. So you're just like, you don't even know, is there an internet there? You don't know what's going on. So then what Fred came up with was, let's at least have it go to a page where people know, yes, you're on the internet. There just happens to be an empty closet here. But you're right. You did go to a website, and now that website is saying, here, there's nothing at this domain name, but at least there's some pay-per-click ads. So because early on you'd go to a fucking domain name and there'd be nothing there, and you're like, this internet's a bullshit. I keep going places and there's just nothing, nothing, nothing. So at least he put something there. Now, now the argument is, yeah, you go to a lot of these places and there's something there, but it's these PPC pages and it's just littered. The internet's littered with it, and I find that to be true. Well, Josh, when you're buying the valuable names out there, say like in another extension, and when you go to the .com and you see that it's parked, do you put on the brakes real fast, or it definitely changes how much you're willing to pay for that single word in another extension? Tell us.
100%. If it's a new GTLD where it's like you want, I don't know, like um I don't know, like service bot, right? And you want to get service.bot, like if servicebot.com is for sale and it's like 2 grand or 3 grand, um, or even if it's 10 grand, I'm like immediately not interested in the new GTLD, because if the right buyer does come along, uh, more often than not, I think that when it's like you would consider it like somewhat of a hack like that, they're just going to go with the .com. Um, and if they're not, and even if they prefer yours, it at least needs to be like reasonably priced in line with the .com in a lot of cases, or priced a lot less. So I don't know. It just adds a little dilemma there. And then like if you're investing in .org or .net or other like alt TLDs where it's not like a hack, it still matters what's on the .com, because if the .com is available, um, that's always going to be the preference for 99.99% of companies. Um, so I personally prefer when the .com is completely off the market or in use.
Yeah, I mean it's just a bummer when you think you got a good name and another extension, and you realize the .com. I don't even look at the other stuff, and it's probably available too. And that's why you see people. It's taken in 76 extensions. Yeah, if the top two or three extensions that make sense with it, because sometimes there is a name that really makes sense with another extension outside of .com, and those are parked. It does. It makes me think. Anyway, it is true. The internet's littered with that kind of stuff, and people that aren't familiar with domain investing, they don't care that we spent a bunch of money and we got to make our money back on some of them because very few of them sell. And no one, the outside world doesn't care about it. And I know, like I said, there's been a lot of conversations here on X. I know we're going to have some conversations, I believe, in ICA members, and people just keep talking. I might join. Well, either join or don't join. I mean, fuck. Excuse my language, but the point is,
I mean, outside of
yeah,
domain investing as well, while we're on that topic, Todd, is like it's an industry, right? Like there are lots of businesses built around products that are related to the domain market. So it's not you're not talking about just like domain investors, blah blah blah. It's bad. Like, why are they doing this? I don't like that business, whatever. It's not when you talk about some of the things that these I'm just going to say haters are talking about. You're talking about affecting an entire industry, with multiple businesses that have products catered to this market, um, and good products catered to this market. So I don't I think that most of the people that have an issue have a very narrow view on what it is that takes place in the domain aftermarket, and then the products that are built around it.
it's one of the best points I've heard, Josh, and I mean that about. I never even think about all the ancillary businesses, and people might say, "Well, that's the haters," like you say, that's too bad. But it is true. There's a lot of businesses built around domain investing. I'm surprised, and that's certainly not easy to build a business around domain investing, um, and that would certainly be affected if they, outlawed, made certain domain investing practices, uh, you know, illegal's not the word, but if I can stepped in and for some reason they, said you can't have, so many domains. I guess the point is I was saying about ICA is we're going to have some private calls about this because domain investors, they're like, well, we need to be ready then. We need to, all right, well then it's going to take no time off our back. We talk about domains. We talk domains all the time, and the ICA deals with UDRP reform, which, yeah, we want to talk about. I was talking, with Chad, my partner, the business partner, about, yeah, listen, there needs to be some loser pays, you know, reform to the UDRP, but it's hard to get it implemented. And then, yeah, RDNH penalties. If you're abusing the system, you need to be penalized. These types of things, are important to work on. And then, of course, we need to limit some of these registries, even the ones that have freedom. Should they really be allowed to just raise the price to whatever they want as long as they give you a 6 month notice? So, that's the types of things that, at least speaking, as a group, with not like just domain investors, but the domain lawyers. And then, like you said, Josh, all the ancillary companies. There's some people who are like, I'm not even much of an investor. I just provide this service, whether it's a, a blog, the aggregated blogs. Most people that, whether it's, uh, uh, what's his name? Francis? It's not Francis. Who runs domaining.com? Is that his?
Francois.
Francois. I knew I was close. Most of the guys, and Abdul Bassett. I mean, a lot of the guys that they're certainly investors, but they also operate, some of these other businesses. But my point is, a lot of us ICA members, we this is something that's worth a section of time to talk about, and that is, hey, if somebody starts, I don't know, like they're doing that Digital Citizens Alliance, somebody starts lobbying some legislators, and it gets any momentum at all, we want to be ready and put it out like a cigarette in an ashtray. Let's get this thing but if we can, because you certainly don't want it to pick up any steam. So I bring it up because sometimes it's good to have these conversations in private, so we don't give the opposition any more ammunition that they have, because then they start knowing, oh, here's how you're thinking. And we do it in public here, a lot of us domain investors, and here's what, and myself mostly, because I catch myself playing devil's advocate and thinking, if I was on their side, here's how I'd argue it. And believe it or not, sometimes they haven't thought of some of the things that we're talking about. They think, yeah, that's a pretty good one, I'll use it against them. So that's why I said, if you become an ICA member, we are going to have some private calls, basically members only calls. So if the opposition wants to join the ICA and try to infiltrate, come on over. But that's why I'm saying,
Come support us.
yeah.
Come support us. Yeah.
By the
If you
way,
want to join these calls, it's going to cost you.
if anybody wants to join us, Josh,
One.
let's anybody raise your hand, because we don't want to keep going on. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just going to say it's really good to be to play devil's advocate, in my opinion, for a lot of things. Not just this topic, but in everything that you do, in every purchase that you make. Um, it's just good to try and look at things from different perspectives. Because people obviously get very tied up in their own thought process, their own emotions. Um, and being able to view certain things from the outside in is always helpful.
Yeah. One of the things, and go to the outline a little bit, is you were talking to new investors about flipping and how that can really be a benefit. What, why did you bring that up? I mean, did it just somebody brought up the topic to you and you thought, yeah, flipping for new folks, it's sometimes to get cash flow to invest back in better names. But what were the comments that you had on that? I mean, why were you talking about new investors flipping? What advantages are there to it, and then what pitfalls do they need to avoid?
So the reason why I started talking about it was because of a Domain Sherpa episode that we recently recorded, and I think it's out. Actually, it might not be out. I think it may be coming out. Um, with Braden, Drew, and JT, and we were just uh, talking about churning uh, inventory and generating cash flow, um, and when it's appropriate to sell and when it's appropriate to hold, and um, the difference between a seasoned investor that is built a portfolio and someone that is building a portfolio, and how those you know two circumstances should potentially dictate what your strategy is. Um, and I think it's been a highly debated topic over the years, where people want to say they're right one way and the other way is wrong. Um, but I don't necessarily think there is a right and wrong. I think that if you're pretty hands-on in the business and trying to grow your portfolio actively, then in the most simple way possible, churning names for a profit that you can easily reinvest the proceeds back into higher quality names, numerous, at least similar level or higher quality names, then you should probably do that. And if you're more passive and you feel like you already have the portfolio that you're happy with and you're not looking to grow or reinvest profits, then you should or could be a lot more selective in the offers that you accept or the pricing strategy that you have. Um, and I think that if you look at the people that pitch one strategy over another, uh, this theory, if you like, becomes quite obvious. At the high end of the market, when we're talking about these top tier one word .coms that you look at and you say, wow, wish I could get a name like that, and they almost never hit the market. And when they do, they sell for hundreds and thousands of dollars in auctions. That type of name, I don't think it makes sense to doesn't make sense to want to churn that one for a 1x or a 2x or a 3x, whatever it might be. Obviously not a 1x, but because it's very hard to replace them. In some cases, you might not even be able to replace them because there's so many other people wanting those very few number of names. But at other areas of the market, it might make more sense. So, that's kind of something that I was interested in discussing. And I could go on forever about this, but I talk about you're buying a name for, and people have done a lot of experimenting on this, right? But you buy a name for $50 or whatever. I think most people today look at pricing that name between like 2 and 5,000. But I don't think there's a definitive answer on whether pricing that name at 500 would is a better or worse strategy, and how much that affects your sell through rate, and your ability to compound your investments into growing the portfolio. It's an interesting thing to think about, and I don't think it's a one size fits all type situation.
Well, Page is conducting a whole exercise in flipping names. He's done it before, obviously, throughout his whole career, but now he's doing an exercise with his daughter Julie, where they're trying to turn $100 into, a million, and you got to do that by flipping. Paige, welcome. What comments did you have about this topic?
Well, it's a topic I spend a lot of nights and days thinking about. Thank you for the shout out to Julie. She has a day job, so she couldn't be here today. But do we have an efficient market where you could even input the data, like change price on, say, I had 350 real estate names, and they're all unique. But at the same point, if I could change 175 of them to 999 and keep half of them at 49.99, and actually have a market that would somehow show me some data, it would be great. But I agree with Josh. I just don't know if we do. And you're left with your emotions, and your emotions convince you that every time you sell a name for 650, oh my gosh, that buyer would have paid $5,000, right? And then, then someone inquires on a $5,000 name and they say, well, I would have paid 450, but now I won't, or something, So I think that's the hard part about it. Josh, do you ever feel that way where you always kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just me admitting too much frailty, but I
No,
always
no,
wonder if
I
I've sold them
definitely feel.
too low or too high. Yeah.
I definitely feel that way, but I think that there's so many little nuances about domain investing where it makes it so difficult to come to the right conclusion here. Because I also think that there's something to be said about the type of name as well, right? So like, maybe a four-word phrase that you pick up for $50, and a good phrase, right, might have a pretty high sell-through rate at like the $500 range, right, where someone just personally likes that phrase, and it's a popular phrase, and doesn't necessarily have like a clear business plan around it, but is willing to drop a few $100, right? So you have that type of name. But then you also may spend $50 on a finance name, right? And that name, although maybe isn't going to be thought of quite as often, when it is thought of, and when there is a need for it, the company is more likely to pay the three, four, $5,000 for it. So there's and so because every domain is unique, right? And all these domains that say that you're only focused on like the $10 to $50 range when you're in your purchase prices, or hand registrations for even less. Um, the names that you're registering, they're not gonna appeal to the same audience, and the different audiences have different price expectations when they're going to purchase names. So like, unless you're focused on a very, very specific niche, which some people are, like maybe like geos in certain industries or whatnot, then I think it's very, very difficult.
Yeah, I think that the only thing I've thought of over 20 years, the most important thing, reality is reality, right? What you're picking and what you're selling, how you're selling it, buy it now, make offer, how you're negotiating, and just don't over buy or undersell, meaning always ask for too much money, where you're out of the game. You just got to stay in the game. That's what I would say to anyone, is that you can't be like a gambler, like in that movie Rounders. You know what I mean? Where you're totally convinced you found the right, you're gaming this other guy, and you put all your chips in, and then when you lose, you're done. You go back to the route or whatever it was. So I think that, because Josh, I think you could have a random sale, and it could be a random sale for someone for $5,000 who never even resolves the name. And you meet them later and you find out, yeah, I was thinking about doing that, and I actually thought it said 500, but it said $5,000, and I paid it, and I thought, nah, I just won't get my money. It's like you never know what leads to a sale. So be diversified. That's what I probably tell myself more than anything. I'll close with this: is most likely I'm not trying to either win or lose on 100 out of 100 names. I'm trying to have 25 names with the buy it now higher than I think, 25 with the buy it now lower than I think, 25 with make offer because maybe that's going to be an awesome buyer, you know what I mean, and 25 maybe try a different landing page strategy. And I'm looking to be in the middle of all those, if that makes any sense. And maybe I've taken the pressure off myself to absolutely have picked the absolute best way to sell names, the absolute best lander, the absolute best aftermarket, and then feel like I have to have everything there. So I guess I just kind of mix it up and hope I get my share.
Well, let me say, no, that doesn't make any sense. Hold on, Josh. No, it does, Paige. Of course it doesn't. I wanted to ask you because we're going to talk a bit about, Josh was mentioning in some of his posts about cash flow. And it can really, a domainer get, $100 to $200 in cash flow, not only per day, but per month. I want to ask you, Paige, for years you had Domain Outlet where you would sell names, $69, great names. I go through there and I can't believe it. I'm like, I think it's another mistake. You made another mistake. Anyway, that was really to generate cash flow. And I wanted to say, I know you turn it on, you turn it off, but tell us how, when you operate domainoutlet.com and you have tons of names and then you list them for many, 50 to $150, how has that helped with cash flow, and has that really worked for you over the years to have a marketplace like that, a true wholesale marketplace?
Well, thanks for asking. I know Josh is really familiar with wholesale marketplaces. Um, but yeah, for me, you'll see domain outlet get promoted when my retail sales aren't doing well. Um, and for me, I believe every name has a wholesale value and a retail price. Some domainers are better buying at wholesale, and time is their friend, time and patience. And as well as the fact there's a lot of domainers that have a skill, which is how to engage and offer and work that offer up. That's just as much a skill as listing buy now. You know what I mean? And being really good at is to be able to take somebody and say, no, you're not even close, but still leave a little room to keep the conversation open. So for me, when I'm not doing I try to do about 3,000 a week. And if I'm not doing 3,000 a week and I haven't for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, then I make the decision, would I rather have $40,000 worth of wholesale value domain names that are retail priced at 1 million, you know what I mean? Or would I rather sell 10% of that and get 4 grand back? And no matter what I sell, I'm really not going to notice it. You know what I mean? I'm going to sell 4% of what I own over the course of a month. And in truth, I'm not going to remember what I sold. And so, yes, for me, it's a way to, you can't wholesale, you can't sell names to another domainer. All you can do is unbuy them. That's what I say. In other words, I have to have the price so compelling that even though you think, oh, Paige is happy, he's making money, it's $68 or $99, that I've got you to just look at the name and do you want it. So yes, for me, I wish we had better wholesale platforms. DNWE is still operating, but when Josh had it, it was a place I could go and list 25 names a day over 5 days, put up 125 names. I had to put them in the danger zone, man. You know where the zone is, where it hurts to sell. It hurts. Yeah, it hurts if you're talking about a $1,000 to $5,000 name. But then you make the decision before you even list it that I'd rather have the money than the name. And for me, at least, when the sale happens, I'd already made the decision, that I'd rather have the money than the name. And then lastly, Todd, you know me, I'm going to buy every day. So if I end up selling more names than I should at wholesale, oh darn, I got to go back in and replace that inventory, and I get to double buy names the next 3 weeks. So for my peculiar situation, the outlets worked really good. But I wish we had better places to list at wholesale where the customer would be led to a name that was value priced at a wholesale number. Um, anyway, that's all I'll say.
Josh, I know you had some comments. I want to say it does hurt, Paige. How I have done it, selling those at wholesale. Okay, selling them in bulk at wholesale, it's still the same thing. What I try to do is it hurts, and I just hurry, give me the money real fast so I can just start counting it, and makes me forget that I'm selling the names. People know I've done this. Invest say 1,000 four-letter names that I bought in early 2000s or 2008, whatever. Then I sell them and just get my money back, the $200 that I had in them, $200 each. And you're thinking, why'd you sell 200 for 200 each? And it's like, because I wanted the money. Okay, 40, I just count it. But I'm only getting my money back after all those years. And to me, I'm like, that's like sometimes when you're at a casino, could you imagine being at a casino all day and having a crappy day and they go, listen, we'll let you leave it and we'll give you all the money back that you lost if you'll leave right now. And I'm like, but I'll check out and you'll never see me again. I'll jump over this like Evil Knievel. Wow. I mean, so no, I love, it does hurt wholesale, but it's wonderful if you even have the opportunity to do it because, there's still no guarantees that you're going to be able to wholesale your names. Josh, about the cash flow you were talking about, can a new investor really, I mean, how long does it take before to get 100 to $200? Were you saying a day or a month? I can't even tell, but I mean, any cash flow is hard to get in the domain space. Talk more about your comments on cash flow and how to get it in domain investing.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't really dictate, especially in the beginning, how retail sales are going to perform. Um, but so you've got to kind of manage the things that are within your own control, and you can control what you buy. And I think that some names at certain price points, especially, are more liquid than others. So, as a general rule of thumb, the more you're willing to spend on a name, the more liquid it is. So, you know, if you're building a portfolio of names that you've spent, I don't know, let's say $500 plus per name on, um, but you haven't had any sales and you need to generate cash flow, you have more opportunity to generate that cash flow from selling to other investors when you purchase higher quality names. Now, of course, that's easier said than done, but one of the things that I talked about a couple of weeks ago was why I built DNWE and how I used it in the beginning, and um, you know I wasn't necessarily listing names on DNWE for cash flow most of the time. It would have been a good reason to, but it wasn't necessarily my primary reason. My primary reason was because um, I wanted to sell names on DNWE. I wanted names to be on
No,
there.
no,
I wanted like
you wanted to buy names, Josh. You said you didn't do it for cash flow. I always thought that's because you wanted to get a peek at someone who's already decided I've got to get out of this name, and
mm,
that you wanted to provide a platform as a buyer, right?
interesting. I was never so for the first let's say that we owned DNWE for 4 years. For the first 3.5 years, I didn't buy a single name on DNWE because I didn't want to give off the
That's
impression
unlike
that
your
I
predator
was.
nature.
Yeah, I exactly. Well, I
No, and that's
people.
straight up. That's fair, Josh. Yeah, way to go.
I
Way to
didn't.
go.
I did.
That's yeah.
I didn't want people to think that I was building a platform for my own like benefit on the buy side. Like I wanted to attract buyers. My biggest thing with the NWE, and Josh can who's in the audience can confirm this, is that we wanted to attract buyers because the only way that you got the buyer and seller issue, right? The only way you get buyers is from sellers, and the only way you get sellers is with buyers. um, so I always wanted to attract buyers, um, and I didn't want them to think that I was buying and taking the first look. So I wanted people to know that if they were using the platform, they were able to get that first look. In the end, it didn't really matter. Like they didn't care as much as I thought they might. Um, but
Yeah, and
um,
Josh, I didn't mean to say that you were gonna. I meant not that you were gonna buy names when people listed them, but that you were gonna participate in the volume that came
yeah,
from what we used to talk meeting in the middle. You know what I mean? Where
yeah,
sellers always want to sell for the crazy price, and buyers you can't get cheap enough for a domainer, right? They're like, I'll buy a oneword.com for $50 if you. And so I always thought that you were just trying to create scenarios in the middle where there could be some action, right?
yeah. Well, I ended up doing that on the sell side. So but what it also did is it proved out some very important um, points that I still make to this day, and that is that you can, if you're good at selecting names on the drops or from closeouts or from the aftermarket, that there is a very clear opportunity for flipping those domains to other investors at a very high sell through rate. And what I mean by that is basically 100%. You may make a mistake here and there and have to take maybe just get your money back or even take a small loss on one or two. But I would, and I have all the data in my account, and I showed little screenshots of it in a post a couple weeks ago. All the data to support this. In that, if I wanted to, you know, it was very comfortable for me to buy a name for $11 at closeouts, which was the highest price at the time that I was doing that, or buy a name on Dropcatch for $20 or $59, and then flip them for $100 or $150 or $200 on DNWE, and I did it all day long. Um, but what I can tell you, and again, I have firsthand experience because I saw everything that was going on the platform, is that 99% of other people struggle to do that. And I always kind of wanted it to be the scenario where, if I could do it, everyone could do it. But they just, and in principle, I think it's possible, but I just don't think that, like, there's maybe like too much conflicting information, or, you know, there's certainly, a degree of talent involved in any business. Like, some people are better than others. Like, there's no doubt about that. I don't think that I'm anything, special or out of the ordinary, but that may or may not be true. I don't know. What I do know is that there are buyers that, and there are so many buying opportunities every day, that everyone is bound to miss something. I'm going to miss something today that I might have been a buyer on, and it's all about, and that's why I also talk about, it's all about discovery, education and discovery. Those are the two most important things to liquidity in this market. Is that you need to be able to get the right person's eyeballs on the right name at the right time, and then from a selling standpoint, you need to have the right education to know that, and to know about what domains sell at what price. And if you know all those variables, and if you know and if you're able to execute on them, there's plenty of opportunity for flipping names to investors.
Hey, Josh, I have a question. Can you talk about, because I totally agree with you 100%. How does the Twitter, I just sold this name for 13.5 that nobody would have paid $20 for, and it's like you get these random data points that are real sales, right? I mean, that seller's walking home with 12 grand, and we're like, that sucks. I got names totally as good as that. And, or if I go buy a name just like that, it'll never sell. And the fact that we only get this random data, this random once in a lifetime sale from once in a lifetime people, and we don't get and I had 4,012 domain names not sell today. But doesn't that make it hard, don't you think, for a new investor not to? I think it makes it hard for a new investor like Julie. I've had to discern what is good enough to buy, because you could
Mm,
look at what you want to buy and you could go, it's totally as good as this other stuff I just saw sold, and you buy
100%.
it, and it's almost like I have to tell her, wherever you settle, Julie, wherever you settle and don't show discernment, you know what I mean, to walk away, that's where your portfolio is going to be, and it may not be enough.
100%. I mean, I think that the simplest way to answer that is that there are thousands of domain investors on Twitter, and um, of those, many of them have thousands of domains in their portfolio. Some of them have tens of thousands of names in their portfolio, and uh, every so often, one of them will hit a sale that will go. Nothing goes more viral than a sale in the on domain Twitter. By the way, you could write the most amazing post of all time, and you get 5 likes on it. But if it doesn't include a sale, no one's interested, right? You post a sale, and suddenly hundreds of likes, and everyone's over the moon. Cool, makes sense. It's great. Like, people want to see what they want to see, right? Um, but if there's an outlier sale, you're going to see it and you're going to hear about it. But you don't hear about everything else, right? You don't hear about all the rest. You don't hear about the hundreds of thousands of other names that were, bought and not sold. And that in essence is, you know, the answer to that dilemma. And let me tell you, I still go through it myself. I'll see it. I think I posted something the other day. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I saw a sale and I retweeted and I said I don't understand how I don't have 100% sell through rate on my portfolio because that's how it felt. But I mean, like in any business, there are outliers, and there are plenty of people on domain Twitter. I know it feels like a relatively small community, but there are a lot of people, and I discover new people on X through these random outlier sales all the time.
And maybe it's good too, Josh. I don't know if you've ever done a portfolio sale or quoted a portfolio sale. And maybe this will be helpful for domainers of all sizes. But if you ever went to sell your portfolio, it's going to be, I think, a much different process than most people think. We all like to think that someone's going to take our portfolio, they're going to look at every name, they're going to give every name a value at what we call,
Mm-hmm.
oh, wholesale. It's total wholesale. It'll totally sell for that. It'll totally sell for that. And then you add
Mm-hmm.
it all up. And what you'll find buyers are going to say is, show me your whole portfolio and tell me what your monthly or annual sales were the past 3 years. In other words, what they're looking to do is assess, is your picker, is your choices that you're making producing a sales volume minus your renewals that's an operating business that they'd like to buy. Now, it's different if you have 7 one-word.coms, right, Josh? I mean, they're going to value those. But in general, if you're a flipper, a hand-reg buyer, that's what people are looking for in your portfolio is there a propensity from the normal things you buy to produce a volume of sales, right? And that's
Yeah,
what someone might be interested in buying.
yeah. I think so. There's multiple ways of looking at it, and real quick, so Drew and I were looking at a portfolio recently. There was about 5,000 names in this portfolio, um, and the way that we were looking at it and the offer that we made on it um, was actually we just looked at the top 250 names, and we valued the top 250 names um, at what we thought we could get out of those top 250 names, and for us that was the value of the portfolio. And the whole and everything below that was, we didn't even look at really. And I think that goes, that kind of, I know that sounds like overly simple. There are, some reasons why it was only the top 250 as opposed to like the top 500 or whatever, and that has to do with like a drop off in quality. But what the point that I'm making is that the low end of the market is very liquid, and the higher end of the market is a lot more liquid. And it's like, if you wanted to sell your portfolio, um, unless you've got a buyer that's looking at what you're making, like from a revenue standpoint on a yearly basis, like you talked about, and just like likes the portfolio in general, the general maybe theme of the portfolio, and even at the lower end, you know, you're gonna struggle to sell that portfolio. And I think a lot of larger investors that have larger portfolios that are kind of like looking for that kind of exit have realized that more recently it's become a lot harder to sell large portfolios, for purely for that reason, because these lower quality names are just, quite
Worthless.
frankly, very easy to replace at quite a low price.
Well, they're worthless. Hold on, Paige. So I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna have Arif to say something after I talk, and then I'm going to welcome our guest, Mike Carson, because I invited Mike to be here, and I can't wait to talk with him. But first, I want to make a few comments, and that is, well, first, Josh, yeah, that's why I posted my sale the other day, or today, was it yesterday? Because I felt like I was going in a room, and of course, you get hardly anybody commenting on your post, but as soon as you post a sale, everybody's like patting you on the back. God damn, Todd, you did great. And I feel like I'm in a room and I won the Indy 500 and they're all over me. And everybody back up. I got to drink the milk. Okay. So that's exactly why I posted that sale, because I was like, I'm not even posting stuff anymore because I just don't, I don't know. It never seemed, I don't know. It didn't seem like it helped. But I tell you that the congratulations and all the interaction. Okay, about the portfolio bullshit that you guys were just talking about. Paige is right, and you're right. Those are the two ways that I've seen people value the stuff. When I haven't sold portfolios, I've sold portions of my portfolio of 500 name, say a 500 name group of them, and I sent a message to it was Braden, and Braden asked exactly what Paige asked, and he's like, "All right, well, show me these names and show me what income you've received on this portion of your portfolio over the last whatever." Brain like asking all. I had all the data, so here it is. You want it? Here it is. And then I see others would do exactly what you say, Josh, and that is just look at the top ones. We're valuing those. We're not going to value the others. Finally, I'll say I did get a message from Josh Schoen. He said that he had to hold you back. He used to try to feast on people. I'm just kidding. He didn't say that at all. But I do think you make it out like you and Josh, or like you remind me of like a couple of guys that started a bar and you guys had a little deal. Don't date the waitresses or any of the clients the first few years, and then anyway, I'm just having jokes here. All right, Arif, go ahead, and then I'm going to welcome Mike. So, Arif.
I'm going to keep it super short. I was going to say, because as when Josh was saying, knowing what domains to sell, what prices, I mean, that for me, the retail side, you guys, it's going great for me. Like, I'm pretty much doubling my money year over year. So when you went back before to say, there's different ways of making money in this business, there are, but there's many more ways to lose. And at the end of the day, there's so many different paths, but the truth of it, what matters most is if you're profitable, right? But just like on the wholesale side, that's to me, like, for me, like Josh, like when I'm into the closeouts, I go deep and I find stuff all the time. And, I buy, 5, 10 a day or whatever it is when I'm in there, and there's more. And the thing is, like, I can't buy everything. And I know there's people when I mention some names I get, they're like, oh yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. And like, well, yeah, people miss it. But then like part of me is like, I want to try that, right? I want to try, taking some things and then flip them right away. But it's just like to answer your question as to why, maybe people don't do that, is most of us don't have the data points that you have, right? We're not running DNWEs. Like you get to see what people are willing to pay for this stuff. Whereas for someone like myself, I'm like, yeah, I know some people want that, but like, are they willing to pay $70 or are they willing to pay $250 or, is it worth my time or not? And it's, when you have a big system in place like DNWE, like then it was worth your time, right? But at this point, I'm like, I was always, to answer your question, for me, I don't do it because it's just like, I just don't know what price points are appropriate for the audience that are, domainers, right? Not end users, but yeah.
Yeah, just real quick on that topic. One of the things that and another, like, kind of similar to what you're saying here, is that a lot of people don't have like the network either. They don't know how to put the name in front of the right buyer, and then when they do, they aim too high, because and if you aim too high at the wholesale level, to be honest, it pisses off potential buyers. So why I tried to build DNWE back in the day was because I wanted to be able to, connect those two people together, give people an option to put it in front of the right buyers. And I'm still big on that today, in one way or another, is I want to be able to connect buyers and sellers. Putting the right name in front of the right person at the right time is important, very important. And it's something that I'm extremely interested in, and I think I'm quite good at. So I continue to explore ways to make that more efficient.
Great.
Nice. So I'm gonna keep quiet because I want to hear what your discussion with Mike is, and we'll talk about this after or another time.
Thanks, Arif. And Mike, I don't know if he's having issues, jumps down and back and forth. But I want to quickly say so, Mike Carson is a guest. I want to say, ask Mike, I wanted to say hi, Mike, and welcome where you're joining us from because I don't know what city he's in. But I wanted to have him give a brief his background in the domain space because now he runs Spaces Protocol, which is a blockchain naming system that's built really on within or on the Bitcoin um, blockchain, and very interesting. But we were going to touch on some .ai names, basically the momentum that the .ai extension has. And Mike sold Park.io, but I was going to have him go back even before that and real brief say, here's how he got involved in the domain space for a lot of you that don't know. Very interesting, and what companies he's built, and then where he's got to where he's at now. So I don't know. I saw him up on stage, and I see him not. I'm going to go ahead. I think he's back until Mike gets up here. And Mike, when you get up here, just start chiming in so we can hear if your audio is working. In the meantime, Josh, I'll try to get him up. Tell us about because I'm going to ask Mike about this. The .ai. There's a lot of momentum with it. You were saying Adam is a place to list your AI names. I'm going to ask Mike what he thinks about the current state of .ai sales and what he thinks, is there a future in it? Is it going to, is it going to plateau off, peter off the sales? So Josh, make some comments on it and I'll get Mike back up here.
Well, there's certainly a lot of momentum,
Can you
and
hello?
oh, here we go. Hi, Mike. I can hear you. How you
Sorry.
doing, man?
Good. Sorry, I don't know. I've been having trouble connecting. I don't know what's going on. If
No, all good. I can hear you loud and clear. I'm gonna let Todd
Yeah, hey Mike,
dictate the play here.
thanks for being here. No, we were having problems earlier with Spaces, so that's no. Hopefully, there's no problems on your Spaces protocol, but this one's messed up. But anyway, Mike, just briefly for the crowd, because there's a lot of people that listen to this on replay too, and I know a little bit about it, but your background of like just getting into the domain space, building some of the companies you built, and now you're working on Spaces protocol. Tell us quickly about your background, and then we'll get to what's happening right now.
Okay, yeah. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. It's
Yeah, you
keep
sound
saying
good.
okay. I'll just keep going and hopefully you guys can hear me. But yeah, so I got into the domain industry in 2013. I think I was I'm a programmer. I like to build websites, and I need.
Yeah, that's a bitch. That went away. Can you hear him, Josh?
I can't.
No, man.
No. So Mike, it did go away. Maybe he's out. But no, it was sounding good while he was there. Mike, I don't know if you can hear me, but just
Shows connected.
when he gets back on, just start chiming in, Mike, if you can hear. But that's how it is. Sometimes you're in a place where you go from Wi-Fi to cellular or whatever, and it throws you off, puts you back down in the audience. But okay, so we'll be patient. But did you ever use Park.io, Josh?
Of course, I use Park.io. I think anyone who was in the kind of .io and other alternative TLDs space, 2+ years ago, couldn't help but use Park.io. They basically controlled that entire back ordering market, didn't they? Really? Yeah,
Okay.
it was solid.
Trying to see. I can't even find Mike in the audience. It's nothing. He'll get back in here. But it's because I think, and Michael tell us, but he was dealing with the registries. I'm sorry, the registrars that had a. There he is. Hey, Mike.
Hey,
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
back. I
No,
don't know how long I'll be
no,
back
that's okay.
for.
No, that's okay. So 2013, you found the domain space, and then we lost you. But so just tell us what happened from there.
Yeah. So anyway, I got into getting expired domains um, because I noticed some good .io domains were expired and were becoming available. So I looked into it and wrote some scripts, and that led to me launching Park.io, and becoming an ICANN accredited registrar, and then eventually getting into .ai, working with the .ai registry, uh, and then selling to Dynadot. But yeah, so can you? Hopefully, I'm
No,
still here.
we can hear you. But anyway, so Todd, pretty cool over there to do business with. But what'd you do? Just you had so much success, basically volume. Basically, you're doing sales and you're doing numbers. So did you approach him or did he approach you for that sale?
Actually, well, what happened is like in 2019, um, after I had my second child, we things got crazy, and I was running Park.io by myself. And around that time, Steve Webb reached out and was interested, and so he became partner in Park.io, and he actually took over a lot of the day-to-day stuff and was doing most of it. And he's actually the one that met with Todd and did the whole deal with Dynadot. Actually, I didn't even have a call with them. It was all him. So
Yeah, I remember you told us on domain name law, and it's always a pleasure talking with you. I hope. Are you going to NamesCon?
I'm not. No, I'm
Okay.
not.
We're going to
Yeah.
need you there, so you need to change that. Yeah. No, but it's a pleasure. I remember you saying that, and Steve really so good. He didn't just come in at the good time and luck out. He helped put the deal together. So basically, I know
Yeah.
you're like, right. I know Steve. I mean, I don't know him well. Only met him at NamesCon a couple times, but I do see his posts that he's traveling around the world. So the money spends good, I guess,
Yeah.
everywhere. But so that's behind you. But before we get onto Spaces protocol, because I'm really interested in, why you built it and what's happening with it now. But quickly about the .ai extension. Do you think, yeah, you knew this was going to happen? Are you investing in .ai? What do you think the future for, this country code domain name, especially related to domain, investors investing in that extension?
Well, so I got in really early with .io, and I luckily I got a huge portfolio of .io domains and did really well with that, more well than I even imagined I would do with it. And then with .ai, I was super early again too, and I mean, like it was like you could get the best .ai. It was like it was the same with .io. It's like there's amazing .ai domains. You could get as many as you want. Like get the most amazing
People are
names, as many as
salivating listening
I
to
know
it.
that's what it was like. But at the time, I so I got lots of names, but I don't know because of .io and at the time I just didn't I didn't hoard them in the same way I did with .io. I mean, I still have some, and I'm glad I still have some. But actually, some I remember at the time, like I would like when I was testing these drop catching scripts, I would get like 50 amazing .ai domains, and but then like a um, Chinese investor reached out and was he wanted to buy the whole thing, all of them, and so I just sold them like for relatively cheap. I mean, at the time it was like I paid a certain amount, and it's like he's offering me like I don't know 20 times what I just paid or whatever, like a day later. So I just took it, which was a big mistake, But so yeah. Anyway, yeah. .ai. I wish I would have invested more in it. I didn't. I thought it was too specific, And at the time, it was before ChatGPT and stuff, so I didn't know AI was going to be so huge as it is. So I missed it. I mean, I can't complain. It worked out really well in a lot of ways,
Yeah,
so I can't
it
complain.
helped
But
build an extra room on the house when you think I could have just bought a mansion. I didn't need to, but I know it. I mean, I know I've dealt with some of the Chinese buyers, not like you, but you're right. They come in and automatically you're like, I've spent thousands. They're offering me the five, the six figures. I can use that right now. But right in retrospect, you think, geez, I wonder, it's just individual names. We had Jason.com on here, and he always speaks really highly of you. And he was talking, about getting involved in these extensions way back. And just the same scenario. Like I had this killer name, I sold for 4,000. I had this killer name, I sold for, and he knows they're worth
Yeah,
six, 7
I
figures.
remember him at the very beginning of Park.io. I think he was user number one on
Yeah,
Park.io,
yeah.
if I'm not wrong.
He's goofy, and he's so silly because he's not that like you, um, not the only extension that he dabbled in very early. And it's exciting to hear. I love hearing it. And it was like, okay, but then also, Mike, you're like the rest of us. So you saw it, but you didn't, and you did make some missteps there too by not holding. But anyway,
Yeah,
about this. This protocol that you're operating now. I'm really into it now. I know it's sort of a competitor to Handshake, and I have no allegiances to Handshake. I just liked Handshake because I liked that you were owning the extension, and I really like what you're doing, but I don't think a lot of people know about it. Tell us about why you developed Spaces protocol, what it takes a little bit to develop it out, and then when you launched it, and how domain investors, if they want, can start acquiring some of these types of domain names.
yeah. So also at the same time while I was starting Park.io and everything, I was also very interested in Bitcoin. I thought it was a revolutionary invention. It's like the first time that anyone's ever solved this problem in human history of being able to have a decentralized ledger and like decentralized money. So I was fascinated by it and I loved it. And then with domain names, I knew that domain names are digital assets and there's no reason that they shouldn't be decentralized. You should be able to control it if you want to. You should be able to own your name if you want to. You shouldn't have to have a registrar or registry in between. And I just have this really strong conviction that this is definitely something that's too valuable. It's inevitable. It's just so valuable. And I got so I yeah I looked at a lot of different solutions and even really heavily invested in Handshake and worked on it. But all these things are so new, and it's hard to. You just have to make the best guess with a lot of these things. Like Namecoin was the first. Namecoin was the first fork of Bitcoin. I think it was the first like separate separate thing, separate blockchain to Bitcoin, and they just made their best guess of how to do it, but it had problems. Like they had distribution problems where somebody could squat on like thousands of names for like pennies, and so it ran into some issues. But they made their best guesses, and since it's so new, you don't know what's the right solution. And Handshake did the same thing. They came up with a lot of really ingenious new things that were really good, but it also ran into some issues, which is it had a separate blockchain, and a lot of these, even working in it every day, I didn't see it until like 2 years in or something. It's like, oh yeah, this. So but like the problems that they ran into is like it's a separate blockchain, so it has a different security model. So like it's not as secure. And then like tying the token, it had a Handshake token, which is like the coin, like associating that the price of the coin to the names, the value of the names, and making sure that the blockchain's secure. And so it also had problems with like distribution stuff. And so eventually we were like, we just got to make this. We got to try to make. I mean, this is an inevitable thing. We just got to try to do it. And the thing is, I really think it should be on Bitcoin because it's the strongest proof of work blockchain. It's the most secure. It has the most adoption. It's like, it's definitely the strongest and best thing. It's like if you're gonna anchor something, a naming protocol, decentralized naming protocol on something, you should do it in Bitcoin. So we worked for like a couple of years and came up with this protocol that is a decentralized naming and it's anchored in Bitcoin. So yeah, it's a way to have decentralized naming, which is like you could use it for domain names or you could use it for usernames, like Nostr usernames or wallet addresses, any way to tie a name to some data that's not as easy to remember. So yeah, so we created Spaces Protocol, and you can read more about it at spacesprotocol.org. We also launched a wallet that's easy to install. You just download it, install it, and then you can start participating in the protocol, either buying and selling names or yeah, it's a Bitcoin wallet also, so it's you can also send and receive Bitcoin.
It's awesome. So spacesprotocol.org. Now forget about all the folks that want to know about, you know, it's on the Bitcoin blockchain and they want to read the white paper, they can there. But let's talk about the people who are like, okay, listen, I don't, I want to know the simple way that, say I want to get, I want to own Todd Ryan. Okay, how do I go about getting Todd Ryan on Spaces Protocol?
Yeah, so it is 2 levels. So we made it so that in order to scale, I think it's important to have 2 levels. So there's like a top level, and then there's like second level under it. So if you want to get the top level, like at Todd Ryan, it's easy actually right now, because you can just go to akron.io, download the wallet, install it, and then just send some Bitcoin to your wallet. Create a wallet, send some Bitcoin to it, and then you can open up the name. You have to open up an auction for the top level names. You have to open an auction for it. So you would just there's a on the wallet itself. You can just open an auction for that name, for your name, and then it'll go to a 10-day auction, and then if you're the high bidder, you get it and you own it and you
Right,
have
and
the
it
name.
allows. Okay, so you say akron.io. How's that spelled?
Yeah, akron.io.
Hey, let me know when you start that auction, Todd, because I'm bidding.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going
So
after it.
that's the key. But that's just like, that's one thing that's similar to Handshake. The name is like Mike said, that's the top level domain. That's the name to the right of the dot. And Mike, I'm gonna have you talk about a second level. But so I go for Todd Ryan. No one's went for it yet, which is fine. You know, might try to get Todd, but I didn't want to mention that. Anyway, so you start an auction, and then anybody can jump in. We understand that. Now they have to have Bitcoin, and they're bidding with Bitcoin. Okay, and the starting bid is the starting bid 1,000 Satoshi, or what is the starting bids?
Yeah, yeah, you can put a minimum bid of anything, but yeah, I think it defaults to 1,000 Satoshis, which is $1, around $1, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Long story short, no, I love it. So, anyways, they go to akron, akron.io, and you connect your wallet. You can create your wallet. I like it because, Mike, you can create a wallet at spacesprotocol.org. Click on wallet and take it from there. But that wallet can, right, it's a Bitcoin wallet, so you can send and receive. I love it. Send and receive Bitcoin to that wallet, and that's the wallet that you can connect when you're at akron.io to, get one of these names. Well, talk a little bit about, we're going to go to the top of the hour and then we quit for the day. But so got another 15 minutes, and I wanted to say, talk about how does someone, say you have your top level name, how can you offer second level names on that? And then secondly, how can you use them? I mean, what are ways you can use them? Can you get paid Bitcoin to this TLD? I mean, tell us a little bit about how to utilize these names.
Yeah, like if you get you know, at Todd, even in the Akron wallet, so somebody else could send, like I could go on the Akron wallet and send Bitcoin to at Todd, and it'll go right to you into your wallet. So that's how you can do it from the top level. The second level spaces, we call them subspaces. So that would be like Todd at Ryan or Mike at Bitcoin or something. So we're working on that now, and um, so we're expecting in the next couple of months to have that launched, where we'll have a standard way to have subspaces, but it'll be done with zero knowledge proofs. The reason you can't do it all on Bitcoin is because Bitcoin's limited to the block size and the number of transactions, and we don't want to load up all this data on the blockchain itself, and it's slower. And so the second level, you can scale to billions of users, to billions of names. So you could have, a billion at Bitcoin names or whatever. And that's all done, but in a completely self-sovereign way where it's done with zero knowledge proofs. So it's all secured in Bitcoin. So basically we would be submitting a proof of all of the names under it. I mean, it gets really technical, but basically we submit a proof in a transaction to Bitcoin. So it's secured in Bitcoin. And with that proof, you can prove that you own, like, for example, Todd at Bitcoin or whatever. And then, so you'll own that name completely in a self-sovereign way, just as you would own Bitcoin if you had Bitcoin in your own wallet. So there's nobody in between. There's no like X or Instagram or Facebook who owns your username, who can take it away at any point. And there's no there's no registries in between that you have to rely on, registrars that you have to rely on for security, or third-party certificate authorities. There's nothing like that. It's directly self-sovereign name that you own forever if you want, and then so you can use that for, like, for example, I mean, the top 3 use cases that we're going to try to integrate right away is, I mean, wallet addresses, like being able to send Bitcoin to like Mike at Bitcoin. I mean, you can already do that with the Akron wallet with top level spaces. So you could send me like at Carson, you could send Bitcoin and with the Akron wallet. But then the other use cases and these are just the top 3 that we're going to do. But the other is like a Nostr username. Nostr is it's like Twitter, but it's more decentralized. And currently the way you have to share your username is by sending an inpub, this key, this long string. It's basically like sending your wallet address or something. You have to send this long key and like, follow me on Nostr. Here's my key. And but we're going to make it so you can just be like, follow me on Nostr at Mike at Bitcoin or whatever. So using it as a username on a decentralized social network. But there's advantages to that too, because then you can bring your username to other services and they will have like your information, or like you could share the information that you have with that username on different services, so that it's a way for you to own it and carry it around with you to different services. And then another thing is, domain names, like being able to resolve like a website on your, like, Mike at Bitcoin or something like that. So, yeah.
All right. No, Mike, I mean, a wallet address, a username, and actually just acting as a domain name. So now I see, I was going to ask you in years ahead, how do you want this to, how do you want these names to be used, and how should it look? So now I understand. Now, if I have a Coinbase wallet, right now I can't, but I'm assuming this is one thing that you'll want in the future. I have a Coinbase wallet and I want to send Bitcoin to a TLD. Right now, I can only do that from Akron wallet, right? I can't do it from a Coinbase wallet to the Spaces protocol TLD yet, but that's something that you do see in the future.
Yeah, I think, that is something that, we eventually, I mean, there's Bitcoin core developers have created a BIP 353, which is a Bitcoin improvement proposal, which is like how to make Bitcoin better, proposal. And they are like, how can we do human readable wallet addresses? And in this BIP 353 that Matt Corallo created, it's really detailed and really smart. And he's talking about the ways, and his conclusion is there's no good way to do it right now. The best solution is using domain names for it. But he even says, this is relying on centralized registries and registrars and stuff. So ours would be like a decentralized solution to that, where you could have a decentralized human readable wallet address.
All right. As more decentralized platforms come in existence, like from a social network to really just any type of decentralized platform, that's what you're preparing for. So it is tough for you to say, we're adopted by this, or to get adoption. I'm running into this anyway, in some businesses that I'm in, the people like, how do you get adoption? Well, Coinbase is having problems with having merchants that they work with adopt stable coin, the simplest things. So to really have I mean, basically we need the decentralized world to progress, to develop out, and that's really what I mean. You're just ahead of schedule, or not necessarily ahead of schedule, but you're playing the future curve. That there's going to be a like Nostra that been around, but a lot of people don't use these decentralized social platforms yet. Just they need to get adoption. You have any questions, Josh, before we wrap up for the day? We always get out of here right before noon Pacific, so I can do my hair. Anyway, any messages, any comments for Mike, Josh?
No. I've been following Mike for a long time, so it's nice to have you on, hear your voice, Mike. I know that Spaces Protocol will be and is a success. It's cool. I love that you're building on Bitcoin, and yeah.
Well,
Thanks. Yeah, no,
Mike, I was going to
thanks for
say,
having me on.
hopefully in a month, and don't mean to catch up, hopefully in a month, I know you're on here, so come back, because what I plan on doing is um, getting a few names and learning, basically getting involved with it a little more, so then I can, be a user and have some specific questions for you, and then hopefully some comments. But I think it's great. I mean, I understand a lot of what you're doing, and I know it's difficult to really market it, to get out there. But so before we go, what type of marketing things do you do to get people aware of Spaces Protocol at spacesprotocol.org?
Yeah. Yeah, marketing is not really my specialty, but we did hire we're hiring a marketing firm to help with that. But I think the main thing we're going to do is we're launching. We own the top level space at Bitcoin, and we're going to launch at Bitcoin names that are decentralized names. It's going to be like kind of like .eth, but for the Bitcoin community. So I think that will help with marketing. That's going to be the main thing. Is we've brought this out to a few people, and they're very interested. So I think this has a chance to be a really big thing for the Bitcoin community, and could be really good marketing for the Spaces protocol. So that's the plan for that. But yeah, I mean, from a domain investor standpoint, I know, I think, for any investor, I think the key for no matter what you invest in is like having an open mind to things, open mind, like not being closed-minded to new things or different things and stuff. And so, I mean, obviously, like a lot of things are not gonna, it's hard to filter out a lot of the stuff that, and you never know what's gonna really take off. But like, I saw it in the domain industry with .io and also .ai a little, like people didn't think, I remember especially with .io, nobody thought .io was going to be worth anything. And so I think, it's my belief that like we're headed towards a decentralized thing, and maybe it's not Spaces protocol or anything like that, but I think it's worth, it's worth keeping an open mind to different things. But yeah.
Well, Mike, so it's a buck. I'm about ready to shut this down so it's a buck. Is there a renewal fee? I mean, say if it's not contention, there's nobody else going for it. It's not contested. You can get it for $1. And what about renewals on these things?
Yeah, for top level spaces, you just have to renew it once a year, and it's just a Bitcoin transaction. So it's basically just, and actually one transaction can renew, I think, everything in your wallet. So like so it's like really small fee. It's just basically just a transaction. It's like under $1 to renew it. But for second level spaces, like what we're going to do with App Bitcoin is there's no renewal ever. You own it forever. So
Fantastic. Hey, I can't believe I let somebody up here. I got to close this room down. But Cabs is a nice visitor. He's always here. Cabs, what's up? What question or comment do you have? Make it fast, please.
Yeah, I will. Thank you so much for letting me on. Hello, everybody. Just a quick question for Mike. You said that at the time that IO came up, people didn't know it would, blow up like the way it did. What was it that kept you grounded, that believed in it, that said, "Oh, this is gonna, happen"? Was there some like research or mechanism behind that, or it was just basically your guts feeling? What was it for you?
Well, yeah, I think for me it was, I mean, first, the reason I got into it is a lot of the coolest websites like were building on .io. And then the reason I realized .io was going to be good is because I started buying, I bought like 20 .io domains. And at the time I was like, I told my wife, I was like, I'm buying all these domains. I think they're worth something. I don't know. I think they're worth something. So, and she was like, because the expenses started added up, and she was like, well, why don't you try selling us, one or two to see how it goes? And I sold, so I would sell them, and then they would sell really well. And so that was that's the conviction you need, really. It's like once you once you start sell, like, and it's not just a fluke, like you don't just sell, like you sell like five, then you're like, wow, okay, these things are, the market tells you, like, you realize, like, oh, these are all selling, okay, it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks, like these are selling.
Yeah.
So that gave you the conviction.
Yeah, and your wife says, "Go just so I'm certain this is real money. Transfer a little bit to my personal checking, honey, and then I'll know it's for real once I go, get my nails done." I want to act like getting your nails done is a woman thing, because my wife, like, she takes the money, she goes, "Yeah, this was real money, so go ahead and get some more." Hey, listen, thanks a lot for being here. I do need to run out. Cabs, thanks for coming up. Arif, thanks for being part of the talk. Ed, and I'll talk to you soon. Paige, thanks for being here, of course. My co-host Josh, he handles business, and thanks Josh for everything. That's going to be it for today. Mike, definitely I'll stay in touch with you, because I think there's things that can do outside of this too. I love it. I love the Bitcoin wallet, but thank you so much for dropping in, and we'll definitely have you back in a month or so when I can tell you about my experiences with your protocol. That's it for me.
Yeah,
That's it for the show.
thanks.
Everybody have a great afternoon.
These guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.